morning. Good morning. So the scripture lesson this morning is Ephesians chapter 5, verses 8 through 14. For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of light, for the fruit of the light consists in all goodness, righteousness, and truth. And find out what pleases the Lord. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. For it is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in secret. But everything exposed by the light becomes visible. For it is light that makes everything visible. This is what it is said, "Wake up, O sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you." The word of God for all the people.
Thanks be to God.
And we'll now sing hymn 347, Spirit Song.
In a moment of prayer together. Oh God, let your Spirit fall on us in a way that helps me able to speak your words, and that our meditations might be focused around you, and that we might be able to incorporate the words of God for our own lives as you desire. Amen. The little boy was at home with his mom, and she was getting the hot dogs ready for lunch, and she went to get the ketchup bottle. And you know how ketchup bottles, when they're nearly empty, the ketchup doesn't want to come out, and so you hit the bottom of the bottle hoping that'll come out. And so she was in the process of hitting the bottom of the bottle, and the phone rang. So her 10-year-old son Ryan picked up the phone, and it was for his mom, of course. And he said, well, she can't come right now because she's hitting the bottom. Now, hopefully who called knew that that wasn't what she was doing. But when people look at you and I, do they know that we're children of light, and of justice, and of kindness, and of truth, as this passage says? What emerges out of us when we're not only in church but in other places? A devotional that I get once a week by Terry Hershey. It's more of a Sabbath moment, I think is what he calls it. And he shares in one of them that when he's feeling like he wants to watch TV, he gets out the series, the old West Wing, the West Wing series. I never got to see that because I was out so many nights. I didn't watch that series, but I know it was popular on for many, many years. And he said Todd, who was one of the key persons, had in this episode Toby Ziegler, the White House Communications Director, was called to the National Mall because his business card was found in the coat of a homeless man who had died of exposure from extreme cold. The explanation is simple. Toby had given his coat to Goodwill. But the experience affected Toby greatly, and he had been asked to come and identify the man. Obviously, he couldn't identify. But he noticed that a tattoo was on the man, and so he knew the man to be a veteran. Back in his office, he called the Veterans Affairs with hope of figuring out the man's story, or at least finding his next of kin. No luck. Mandy, who's another character on the story, walked into the office while he was on a long hold. And she said, "What's going on?" And I quote, "A homeless Korean War veteran died from exposure last night on the mall. I don't know if his family has been contacted. I don't know what kind of burial." He trails off, clearly frustrated. And she said, "How do you know him?" And he said, "I don't." And then he responds, or she responds, "Then what does it matter if you don't know him?" Those words take my breath away, if you will. Whether it's a homeless Vietnam vet, or whether it's an opioid victim here in New Hampshire, of any age, it does matter. Every person matters. And when it doesn't matter to us, we've lost who we are as human beings. If I don't care what happens to one of the children here, or if somebody, whatever, if I don't, I'm less than human. I'm less than a child of light, which Jesus said, we are the children of light. And Paul in this passage says we're to be the lights for other people. And when we miss this, we're not true to our deepest self. Shakespeare said, "To thine own self be true, and it must follow as night the day. Thou canst not then be false to any person." If we're truly true to our own being of who we are, then it does matter who that homeless vet is. It does matter. One of the persons who used to be on PBS many years ago now, and I would, when they do their money raising, I would always catch him, if not at other times, was Leo Buscaglia. Wrote books on love and on relationships, and he was a former teacher and everything. And somewhere in his writings or on one of those shows, he talks about going to see the play Don Quixote, Cervantes' wonderful play. And there's, Don Quixote is that wild errant knight, if you will, who's out there to defend Dulcinea and take on the world. And he, but it's in wretched conditions. He's a prisoner. And Buscaglia found himself caught in the trials of this poor, misunderstood, ill-treated knight. And there's a death scene that takes place near the end of the play. He's surrounded by those who he cares the most for. And suddenly he rises up and grabs his lance and is ready. He said, "We got to go on again to charge the windmills, to win the battle." It's a very touching scene to restore the love of his beloved Dulcinea. And when Buscaglia saw this, He said, the scene affected me so greatly that tears just flowed down my cheeks. Now, most of you will not want to go to a movie with me because it doesn't have to be very emotional or touching. And now comes the handkerchief. He's sitting next to a woman and her husband. And the woman realizes he's crying. She says, turns to her husband, "Honey, this man is crying." As though men never cry. So hearing this, he said, "I took out my handkerchief and loudly blew my nose as I continued to sob." And she was so full of disbelief that a grown man could cry that I feel certain to this day she has no idea how that show ended. People do not know how to respond sometimes when a man cries or a woman cries. But when Shakespeare says, "Be true to yourself," we have to have an emotional being, emotional sense that's allowed to come out and to be expressed. And if we don't do that, that is sort of like, we're given this wonderful light and we're starting to shut it out. We're starting to compress part of our humanness. That's why some of you sing for hospice patients. It's to bring light. Or why you go to a nursing home and play music. It's to bring light. It isn't, we're never ever going to get headlines doing that type of thing, are we? You're not going to be a Kardashian or you're not going to be LeBron James, in that sense. But you're going to be somebody in people's lives that make a difference. There's a poem that goes something like this. There isn't much that I can do, but I can share my bread with you. And sometimes a sorrow too. There isn't much that I can do, but I can sit an hour with you, and I can share a joke with you. Reminds me of the kids here. And sometimes share reverses too. There isn't much that I can do, but I can share my flowers with you. And I can share my books with you. And sometimes share your burdens too. There isn't much that I can do, but I can share my songs with you. And I can share my mirth with you. And sometimes come and laugh with you. There isn't much that I can do, but I can share my hopes with you. And I can share my fears with you. And sometimes shed some tears with you. There isn't much that I can do, but I can share my friends with you. And I can share my life with you. And I can share my Lord with you. And oftentimes a prayer or two. There isn't much that I can do with you, but I can be a human being with you. Paul invites us to be that. Jesus invites us to be that in John 12. Many of us are victims of what we might call the John Wayne syndrome for men and women. We don't cry, we don't show our emotion, we just toughen up. The only way where we can be sometimes free is at a hockey game or a basketball game or a football game, and we let it all out. But all of a sudden after that, we're It means to share the light that's light for others. There's a Methodist minister tells about a woman that came to his church, started to attend, and eventually joined. And she shared her journey with him. And she was a Jewish faith, and she had grown up in a Jewish household and gone to music school. And an outstanding musician, top student. And while there, had one night where she was studying for her exams the next day. And when I read about this, I thought, she studies for exams just like me. Because she started to head up to her dorm room, and she went by the room of another girl who had always struck her as a joyful girl. You know how some people are in your presence, they just kind of light your life up, if you will. And so rather than go study, she decided to go in and see her. That's where it reminds me of, you know. And so she goes in, she begins to talk with the girl. I mean, they'd known each other, but not real well. And she finally asked the girl, she said, "What is it that makes you glow?" Interesting question. And she said, it's my faith in Jesus Christ. The joy that I feel from my Lord. And that began her on a quest for herself of what her faith journey was. And so she shared with her minister, she said, where she became a member of the church. She said, "I want you to read what I wrote in my journal the night that happened, when I went back to my room. Something very strange happened to me tonight. If I were to explain it to someone, I know I couldn't, so I'll try to write it out in these few pages. Perhaps it will pass, but it seems to be emotionally exciting, and I don't really want to lose it." And she tells about the encounter with this girl and her sharing her faith. And then she wrote, "I was filled with a strange feeling. I can't really describe it, but it was sort of like the anticipation I feel when something great is about to happen to me, musically, only this was greater." That person was converted not by somebody saying, "Are you saved? Do you know Jesus Christ?" She was converted by somebody's light. Gordon Cosby once said, "The best evangelism the church can do is to show the joy that we have from our risen Lord." And when this happens, wonderful things happen in our lives. At a family reunion years ago, there was a young 5-year-old boy. And you know, at family reunions, if you have a big one, and I haven't been to a big one for a long time, but there's people of all ages. I mean, you know, there's from the latest new member to 90 plus. This little 5-year-old's wandering around, and he comes across a woman that's 90 plus. And she's sitting there. And he comes over and stares at her face. She has rivulets all over her face, if you will. Wrinkles. And he said, "You're really old, aren't you?" She asked. And he said, "How come you're not dead?" And she said, "Well, I've asked myself that question several times." And then she said, "But I guess the reason is that every now and then someone says, Grammy, would you make me a sandwich? And I make a sandwich. And then somebody else says, I need a sandwich. And someone else. And she said, there's so many hungry people in the world. I'm just making sandwiches. So I guess until everybody's fed, I'm not going to die. That's beautiful. The other story, and I'll leave you with this story, was an upper room devotional recently. Written by a woman from Minnesota. She was an exchange student in Italy. And years before. And she was having a really difficult time. Some bad news had come to her. Homesick, everything else. And she said she just started crying. She couldn't stop. And she's going down the street sobbing. She said it got to the point where she was crying so hard, she had to sit down. And she did. And a woman in the dwelling next door, or the apartment, leaned out her window and she said, young lady, you look like you could use a cup of tea. And then a few minutes later, the woman comes down with a teapot full of hot water, tea bag, sugar, cream in the teacup, and gives it to her. And says, you can leave the teacup on the step when you leave. Went back up. Never said anything else. This woman writes, she said, I don't know what I was crying about, but I've never forgotten that cup of tea. That's when we do things like that, that's when we're difference makers. I think we share that.